I can't believe how few people visit this hidden gem in Barcelona. Let's talk about the Hospital de Sant Pau. Today, on Dream Takeoff, we're exploring the Hospital of the Santa Creu in Sant Pau, more commonly known simply as Sant Pau, a truly underrated architectural gem in Barcelona, Spain. If you're visiting the Sagrada Familia, it's really close by. Just a 4-block walk down the diagonal street, Gaudi Avenue, and you'll find this complex, one of the greatest examples of Catalan modernism. So, let's visit it. The first time I came to Barcelona, I stayed right across from this building on Carrer de Sant Quintí, and I was immediately struck by how beautiful this hospital was, and how little it was mentioned in the city's tourist guides. Because when we talk about Barcelona, we usually want to see everything Gaudí did, but he's just one of the representatives of Catalan modernism. And Catalan modernism was huge. It was a cultural movement, contemporary with others like Art Nouveau in France, the modern style in the UK, or liberty in Italy. But unlike those, Catalan modernism embraced all aspects of culture, not just the arts. Its aim was to highlight Catalan culture, especially its language. And it flourished thanks to the economic boom of the Catalan bourgeoisie at the time, who had made the most of the 19th century industrial revolution and were thriving in industry, commerce, and finance. In other words, there was money to invest in culture. And it wasn't just about money, but also about political reasons to differentiate themselves from the rest of Spain and strengthen their own identity. That's why we talk about Catalan modernism and not Spanish modernism. Much of what we love about Barcelona is a product of this period. If you want to experience everything Catalan modernism has to offer, look at the floor. These red tiles, or panots, with the Barcelona flower, indicate that in front of each one is one of the most iconic buildings from the golden age of Catalan architecture. So far. So if you're coming to Barcelona on a tight budget, take this free tour. You can wander around the city with your head down, and whenever you see a red panot tile, look up to admire a marvel that must be nearby. By the way, these floral panots were also designed by another modernist artist. So, it's all in the family. But I'm getting sidetracked. Back to what we were talking about. The Hospital de Sant Pau. This hospital is at the end of Gaudi Avenue and is the work of another exponent of Catalan modernism, the architect Lluís Domènech i Montaner in the first phase, and his son, Pere Domènech Enrura, who took over from 1920. Currently, the hospital is still operating, but it has moved to a building on the other side of the block that has a much more modern look, like today's hospitals. They provide healthcare and also offer undergraduate and postgraduate education, associated with the Autonomous University of Barcelona. And that's not a minor detail, because this hospital has always excelled in both areas. Thanks to the new building, the modernist part of the hospital, which provided healthcare for over a century, has now been reimagined as the Recinte Modernista Sant Pau, and it's open to the public. You enter from the side, and if you think the building was already spectacular, wait until you see what's inside. This is just the ticket office area, but look how beautiful it is up here. The Recinte Modernista has restored the modernist pavilions, developed a cultural program to promote European modernism, enabled spaces for events within the old hospital, and is open to visitors who want to become more familiar with the building and this fascinating period of Catalan history. Throughout the tour, you'll find things like these projections, which will remind you that the building was a hospital in addition to being beautiful. and its design reflected that purpose. This underground passage we're taking leads us out of the central building or administration pavilion and to one of the lateral pavilions, the Sant Salvador Pavilion. And it's precisely this pavilion that first immerses us in the site's history. The Sant Salvador Pavilion, where we are now, was built during the first phase of construction of the Hospital de Sant Pau as a surgical pavilion for men. It was one of the first to be built, so it's part of the architect's original project. The fathers, not the sons. Here we can find a model of the complex, and yes, it looks beautiful. But believe it or not, it doesn't do it justice because the actual building is much more impressive, and we'll see it later. The central building is called Administration, and the lateral pavilions are the small Sant Jordi in the corner, and Sant Salvador, Sant Leopold, Sant Rafael, and Sant Manuel from bottom to top. The central pavilion is called the Operations Pavilion. On the opposite side, from where we are towards the back, are Santa Apollonia, Purissima, Carme, Mercè, and Montserrat. The ones I could visit because they were open were Sant Salvador and Sant Leopold. Ascending to the second floor of Sant Salvador, we will encounter a more modest office and meeting area. This is because, as we recall, the complex serves primarily as a cultural venue. But if simplicity isn't your thing, you'll find this dragon if you walk towards the front of the building. And you'll say to yourself, why a dragon? Well, dragons were a typical element of Catalan iconography that is quite present in all the modernist buildings you'll visit in Barcelona. And if you haven't noticed, I invite you to pay attention to them. Moreover, all the information and resources about the architect's life are mounted on the dragon, so it's the centerpiece of the exhibition. And as if that were not enough, it's the one that illuminates the space. So give it a few minutes, and when you get tired, start looking at the rest of the pavilion, whose restoration has turned out beautifully. Although what we've already seen is worth taking out your camera, the part I liked best are the hospital gardens. Remember I told you the model didn't do it justice? Well, here's the proof. The garden is impressive and is surrounded by the beautiful pavilions. But they themselves were key to the architectural project. They were expected to be key to the healthcare function, providing spaces for relaxation and recovery for patients. The next pavilion, Sant Leopold, is also restored and exhibits the technology and medical equipment used in the hospital. and some spaces remind you of how the hospital was arranged. You can also visit other semi-open pavilions that have not yet been restored. I don't remember exactly which one this was, but I guess it was El Carme. And if you still have time, there's still an epic building, the central one. But first, I would suggest you walk around and enjoy the gardens. Construction of the hospital began in 1902 after a wealthy Catalan banker, Pau Gil y Serra, passed away and left instructions in his will for his inheritance to be invested in a new hospital for Barcelona. Since Pau Gil was no longer around to spend the money on anything else, he spared no expense. In his will, he requested that it not be just any hospital, but one that would be a leader in technological, architectural, and medical innovations. Additionally, Pau Gil, whose first name was Pau, also wanted the hospital to be built under the tutelage of St. Paul, that is, Sant Pau, for reasons I cannot understand. This happened just when the Hospital de la Santa Cruz, the largest hospital in Barcelona for over 5 centuries, was at a critical point, as its old building could no longer meet its needs. Coincidentally, they had a vacant plot of land available. So the two things were combined, and the new hospital of the Santa Cruz i Sant Pau was born. The visit ends at the main building, which is the one you see from the street, and which impresses more like a mansion than a hospital. But that's what happens when there's money. The building has this impressive marble staircase. If you notice, every detail of its ornamentation is worth it. And then, look at the ceiling. The upper floor is decorated with furniture and objects from when the hospital was inaugurated. So I recommend exploring the different rooms and looking out the window whenever possible. From here, for example, you can look out onto Gaudí Avenue and catch a glimpse of the Sagrada Familia. Although it looks small, remember it's only 4 blocks away. And although the window of the large central hall is worth it, don't miss the hall itself. I think it's the most majestic of the entire complex. But don't stop looking out the window, as it will also give you an excellent view of the hospital garden. In order to come to the Hospital de la Santa Cruz Sant Pau, you can't just do a free visit, which from 2025 will cost 18 euros in the morning and 17 euros in the afternoon, or a guided tour for 21 euros. You can also request an audio guide for 4 euros. And if you want, there are special prices for group visits. And there are even free tickets under certain conditions, which you can read about on the official website. But that was the end of the visit, because just as I was recording this video, they told me they were closing the complex for the day. So I had to say goodbye. Although I had loved the front of the building since my first time in Barcelona, this is the first time I've been inside. And I only did it because I came with my sister. We had been trying to get into the Sagrada Familia for a week. Still, it was impossible because there were no spaces to visit it for the next 2 weeks. So this was our plan B, because there were spaces available. When I entered, I thought it would just be the main building because I didn't expect much from it since it was a hospital. And I was wrong. And I thought it would only be a 1 or 2 hour visit. And I was wrong again, because I would have liked to stay here much longer and have given more time to the exhibitions. I don't know if you have the same feeling as me, but how is it possible that such a beautiful place is not full of tourists? On the one hand, I wish it wasn't, because then the visit would be very relaxed and you could enjoy it a lot. But I really think this place deserves much more attention than other spaces in Barcelona. It's time to leave the Hospital de Sant Pau. Please don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next destination here on Dream Takeoff.